Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's afternoon here anyway, right now. Very excited to have Bill with me here today. I'm going to let him introduce himself a little bit, but I've known Bill for years and very excited to have him to talk about the state of VDI and specifically what's going on at Citrix because when I met Bill, he was his customer, and now he is, running the big show there. So I guess, Bill, can you give us a quick introduction of you and your backgrounds for the customers who might not know you?
Yeah, thanks, Ken. So it's great to be here. So Bill Gray, I am the Vice President of Platform Services here at Citrix. Started with Citrix in September of 2024, but come from a long technology background, educational background in computer science. And since about 2005, I've spent about 20 years in the customer space, where previously to Citrix in 2024, from 2014 to 2024, I was senior director at a very large healthcare organization where I was senior director of all end user compute for VDI. So in that role, we were about 50-50, right? If you think of kind of
Yeah, yeah.
physical laptops versus the hosted application virtual desktop delivery, it was very much a strategic platform in that organization.
Perfect. So I mean, this is a little bit of an aside, but I have to ask this question. So, all of our customers like look at the vendor side, whether it's the reseller side or the manufacturer side, like, oh, my life's so hard. I have operations. I have this problem. I have outages. I can't wait to go on the other side of the fence and just basically have three martini lunches and live the good life. So, what you've had the experience, you have the transition. So, how do you feel about the transition of moving to the OEM side? And the experience there. Like, what would you say to the you from 5 years ago thinking about that?
Yeah, it's very exciting. It's very fast paced, to your point, right?
Yeah,
What is customers think, man, all we do is submit POs and write
yeah,
checks, right?
yeah, yeah.
It's not all of that. There's a lot going on all the time. And, at Citrix, where we do a lot of innovation and a lot of work has been going on in the product. So it's very fast paced as well, just a different fast pace, I would say. But very similar things, right?
Yeah, yeah,
It's also, look, I ran a very large environment, had outages there. What
yeah,
do
yep,
we still have a product and we have a lot of customers and they have outages. So
yeah.
it's both sides.
It's fair though. But I'm gonna say you're smiling at least. I'm gonna say you have to at least say you're enjoying it.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Absolutely. Yes, very much
absolutely,
so.
very much so.
Very much.
Excellent. Well, good, good, good. So I really want to start off just like I said. I mean, both of us have been doing virtual desktops for a long, long time. We kind of share that, the blood and the mud thing. And so I'd like to talk about like how you see the market space evolving, how you see that part, and then later on we'll get more into exactly what Citrix has planned for the space. So I think, when you think about, or when I think about it, like when I think about virtual desktops as they emerged, in the 90s, and we were talking about stuff, we were kind of replacing physical desktops and doing those things. How do you think the role of virtual desktops has changed on a sort of a strategic macro level, or has it for you? How do you see the virtual desktop as a strategic initiative for companies?
Yeah. I don't, for many use cases, I don't think it has changed. What I think has gotten more interesting is the right use cases for virtual desktops, right? If you
Yep.
think about the last 20 years of to your, end user compute, to your point, you have physical desktops and even go further back into the 80s, right? You
Yeah.
had green screens and terminals. And what were those? Those are really hosted
Yep.
platforms where you
Yep.
had terminals, same thing, right? So we keep having this shift of, hosted shared compute, and then you go back to physical, and then you go ups and downs, right? Think of the pandemic. There was a big push in 2020 of going to virtual desktops, and then it's evened out. So I don't think it's changed. I think through each of these different ebbs and flows, it's refining the use cases and refining the right reasons for using it. And as technology and compute's gotten better, both in the physical space and the hosted space, I think we've just kind of been finding those refinements and we get better each time.
Yeah, yeah. I always say to me, and again, like this is a very Gotham thing because we're in New York and we have a lot of high compliance at
Yeah.
pharmas and banks and those guys. But it's been in a large way a security compliance play in the sense of you might not know how you feel with distributed computing, but you know how you feel about distributed data,
Right.
right? Like you don't want your data all over the place. I mean, do you still feel like that's a main thing? Do you think that's something
I
people are leaning
do.
into?
I do. Yeah, that's a lot of the reason for using virtual desktop today. And, hopefully we'll get to talk a little bit about maybe some of the browser stuff, right?
Yeah,
Because I think that is really pulling at the different use cases a little bit. But to your point, it's about data security.
yep,
It's also about workflows because you've
yep,
got a lot of, and you talk about these highly regulated environments that you're involved in. The
yep.
systems are complex.
Right, right, right.
And there's other things, not just the data per se, but it's also the experience of it. As you have these systems with, latency and, you can't have the front end too far from the back end or vice versa. That also drives some of these use cases as well. So, yeah, I don't think they've changed that much.
Yeah, I think again, you talk about the use these, with COVID, we had a lot of brokerage firms we were working with, and a lot of brokers wanted to go out to the Hamptons and spend COVID in the Hamptons, which
Yeah.
if that was an option for me,
Hey,
I might choose it as
why
well.
not, right?
Yeah, but at the same time, do you really want to execute a trade from PC in the Hamptons? Like you really want to have that trade execution in a data center that you control, you have all those elements, whatever. So I think people, as they moved into these use cases, also wanted to make the best case of both of that stuff. But I mean, I guess the question still is, what I see is this blow up of both sides. Like people are, there's plenty of laptops, there's plenty of virtual distributed, there's plenty of virtual desktops. I mean, when Citrix or you look at the curve, do you still see VDI growing? What do you think the growth rate is? Like, do you think virtual desktops are on a growth curve?
I do. I still think they are. I think the use cases for VDI are still there. They haven't changed. You still have, to your point, these transactions, these highly sensitive transactions, let's
Right.
call them, they haven't changed, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's nothing. You still have the stock market. You still
Yep.
have brokerage. You still have healthcare.
Yep.
Um, what I think you do also have now is, some of these other rich multimedia and these other things that have to happen at the same time
Yep.
that really kind of shape the equation a little bit more in some of those decisions.
Yeah, I think the multimedia is tough. I think that's one of the areas where I think we struggled in COVID as a
It's
virtual desktop because
always been.
all the video, right? We just don't have a video.
Yeah.
Does Citrix have a video solution? You can just jump. It just tells you you're fixing all this
Always. Yeah, of course we right. Yeah. I mean,
everything.
that's always been, if you think about, when I've always been in conversations, if in
Hmm.
some cases I look at the biggest, if someone says, if I'm not going to use VDI or
Yep.
virtual, what am I going to use? Our biggest
Hmm.
competition is physical,
Hmm.
physical laptop. I
Right.
don't want to deal with that. I just want a physical machine. And one of the big reasons it usually drives it is multimedia,
Right. Right. Right.
video conferencing and stuff like that. That's the big driver of that competition, I think.
So what do you tell customers? I mean, I know what some of our solutions are like when you've got a customer who's like, this is great for everything except for like, Zoom's just killing me. We're on Zoom right now. Like what's your best practice for the multimedia part of a VDI?
It's really around a lot of our technologies and at Citrix we have the HDX protocol, right? That's our main protocol for
Yep.
those type of things. We've done a lot of improvements over those. Um, I think you've also seen evolution in the products themselves that have those requirements.
Yep.
And standardization, like look at WebRTC. You've got that's grown quite a bit. We have really great support for that.
Yep.
Um, and you've also had a lot of vendors come to the table and work with us and the overall virtual desktop space because they've seen a market for it. You think
Yep.
about 10 years ago, some of those video conferencing solutions, it was sort of physical and you just dealt with it, or it was
Yep. Yep.
relying on our protocols. Now you've seen a lot of those vendors. I mean, every single one now that
Yep.
the majors have, they support it now and they have solutions. So I think that's a testament to the significance of VDI in the market.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you. So, I mean, you mentioned secure browsers, and I think that's an important thing to put on the strategic part of the conversation, which is, listen, here's one of my stories, right? I was working for somebody in the late 90s who was an application service provider, and we were publishing Citrix apps and doing this stuff, publishing desktops. And I was what I am now, like the chief geek. And I met with the CEO, and he's like, listen, Ken. He goes, everyone's writing web interfaces. Everything's going to be SaaS. Like, we're not going to need to publish desktops, in two shakes of a lamb's tail. By the year 2000, no one's going to need desktops anymore. Everything's going to live in the browser. And here we
Yeah.
are, we're slowly seeing this come around, all the SaaS stuff, all the work towards enterprise browsers. How do you differentiate strategically what the role of a secure browser is versus virtual desktop, and what do you think are the critical aspects to be successful in that as an architecture?
Yeah. Well, first of all, being with a fellow geek, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a geek too.
Yeah, yeah,
You know that.
yeah,
We've had
yes,
conversations before
yeah,
about that. Um, the I think this is where the use case and the persona conversation really comes into play. So one of the things in 2025 and a lot of what we have done in our messaging and now that we really sell the platform now, you buy the
yeah,
Citrix platform.
yeah,
In order for a platform to be successful as a market offering is to really differentiate some of these personas. So
yep,
we spend a lot of time working with that. And I think that's where the browser comes in. Um, again, I like to think that we had a toolbox
yep,
in end user compute, and the toolbox had physical and virtual in many places. Now you put this secure browser in there, and then you can put an OS on underneath it, and you can get in. There's a whole world of that. The point is that there are use cases today, to your point, as web apps have grown and they've gotten better, and you've got progressive web apps, right? The PWAs and all of that. There are use cases where you can start to say, why am I giving an expensive VDI, or why am I giving a a full-blown managed physical machine that's got heavy
right,
management on it? Why
right,
couldn't I give someone a solution and experience? And the key is experience with
right,
a browser. And that's how we are looking at it in the platform, because we can offer all of that. It's we want to help you get the best unit costs in an enterprise
yep,
per user and get the right experience with the right use cases. And that's really where
right,
that differentiation comes in. Because look, I've been asked this many times as well, are you just going to sell a browser now? You're only going to do browser. And why, if I have a browser, why do I need VDI? And the answer
right,
is because there are complex workflows still in VDI that run very large businesses and complex operations. Those are still not going to move to a browser anytime soon. They're
yep,
too complex. They have too many hooks, APIs, DLLs, pick your favorite
yeah, yeah,
middleware, and it's a huge risk for a business to try to take that complex business operation in total and put that in a browser. So it's choosing the right thing, and that's where we look at it with the platform and that toolbox concept.
that makes sense. I mean, also to me, I mean, I think this is one of the things we're kind of thinking on the geek level is the network part of this a requirement? Like, do you have to have a net scaler, like the Zscaler plan that this, people are moving into the space of secure browsers, and some of them are obviously network proxy players, and you guys have a very strong network play also. Do you think that's critical to this part of the conversation? Because I do think people are
Hundred
kind of ignoring it. Yeah.
100%. And that's what we're working on. When you talk about, when you say our network, our SPA offering.
Yeah.
In many cases, these web apps are not going to necessarily move to the cloud yet or move to a SaaS provider. They're an on-prem web app. So
Yeah.
how can I offer that experience without thinking about the network? What would you have done in the past? You would
Yeah.
publish in XenApp a browser window to get to
Yep.
that local app. Well, if I move it to this local secure browser, I still have to have a way of securely tunneling, right? Tunnel
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
traffic to get to it. And I don't want to start giving people VPN apps or installing another agent. I want to make that a clean, smooth, great experience. And that's where the secure browser for us all comes together in our platform with the other things we have in that with the SPA and NetScaler and those technologies.
That totally makes sense. So I guess one of the things, and I talked about this in terms of I think there's just, sort of an elephant in the room about all the business noise around Citrix, around VMware, around Microsoft, all the pieces kind of moving this. How do you sort of talk to customers about the broad scheme of like where you guys are in the space, where Broadcom is in the space, like what, thinking of this as a business problem, how do you describe Citrix's role in the sort of complicated, competitive landscape?
Yeah. Well, look, we've been the leader in this type of technology for 25 plus years.
Yeah,
Fact. Um, we're the most mature in this space. We have some of the largest
yeah,
deployments in the world in this space. Um, where our platform comes together is again, think of that toolbox. There is no other vendor in the sort of, I like to call it end user compute presentation, because that's what
right,
we do. We put it on someone's screen and we give them a way of interacting with it. There's no other vendor out there that can provide sort of the experience that we provide utilizing the computes that we can provide. And that's a really big deal, right? Every other, there our competitors can run out of multiple clouds. I can have a
right,
VDI in Azure, I can have an AWS, I can have it in GC, I can have it wherever on-prem. We can provide that with the best experience. And that's a big part and of what we do and where I have a lot of fun actually. You asked at the beginning about being on
right,
the vendor side. I've lived that customer experience. And one of the areas that's really hard sometimes to see is okay, you may be selling as a vendor to IT, but that IT department or organization, the end user computer organization that I ran, I had a customer. My customer were the end users in the business that had jobs to do and roles. And my job was to give them the best experience possible at the best unit cost for the organization.
right.
Citrix is the best at doing that with our new offerings. And then you start to put the browser in there. I can give a great experience and an optimized unit cost for any of those use cases. And I think that's what really differentiates us in the market.
I'm going to do like a hot take on this. So a part of it is I think there was a lot of negative feedback from the market about the new pricing plans from Yammer Broadcom and how that was going to happen and what was going to happen. And everybody swore they'd get off it. And I'm surprised how many people have not made the move. And
Yeah.
obviously there's some stickiness to it. There's some difficulties to it, but is do you think that there's some reason they're staying? Do you think it's still happening? I mean,
Yeah.
you're having this conversation, but I'm going to just say it anecdotally surprises me to talk to customers that they're mad and they're pissed off, but they're not making the change. What's the barrier
It's
there?
it's very simple because change is hard.
Right.
It's hard when you have very large, complex environments. And as you know, I came
Yep.
from one.
Yep.
It's hard to do.
Yep.
Yes, the cost of the software is only one piece of the puzzle. And that is a very, very important point. To switch some of these systems also means I have to deal with production support. I have to have, if you think about virtual infrastructure,
Mhm.
I have to have infrastructure sitting there. I can't just, I don't, no one keeps enough infrastructure to shut one side down necessarily and turn the other
Yep.
up. And if
Yep.
you do, you're running a business at massive risk when you don't have like an A side and a B side. You hear that back
Yep.
in the
Yep.
day.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's expensive to do it. And it's not just the cost of the license and the software to the vendor alone. It's all
Yep.
that other change management and risk around it. Change is risky.
Yep.
And our again, I go back to the number one job that I have in my customer role is to make sure I keep the business running.
Right.
And I have to consider that. And when you
Yep.
start talking about changing things like this, you have to think about that.
Yeah. So what can we do to make that easier for customers? I mean, what's our role in this? We're obviously customers. It's always, fundamentally as a business, we're technology consultants at Gotham. We help people, go from one place to another. So I've got customers in a place they don't like. They know where they want to get. Like we're in this
Yep.
tension. What should Gotham be doing? What should we be doing to help customers cross that chasm?
I think, first of all, I think there is a level of empathy,
Yep.
right? Understanding that the conversation is more than just the cost of the license, right?
Right.
And the software. Again, I think maybe I had some folks
Yeah.
from your organization when they would
Yeah.
come into me
Yeah.
or
Sure.
even
Yeah.
a vendor. It's
Yep.
think about that as you're having those conversations and understand. I've had a lot of vendors come into me and they
Yeah.
just want to sell me something and sell me some licenses and
Yeah. Yeah.
say the licenses are cheaper than what you're paying today. That's great. But how do I ensure I do that without impacting my customers?
Yeah. I remember a customer we had sold endpoint encryption to. So they were encrypted a bunch of hard drives and laptops all around the world, hundreds of thousands of people. And they were miserable with the laptop encryption product. It had issues. They had this, they had that, whatever. And I was showing them different products and they were cheaper, whatever. And the guy finally pulled me aside. He goes, "You could give it to me for free. You could give it to me with $1 million check. Do you know how expensive it is for me to bring in 100,000 laptops and re-encrypt them?"
Exactly.
He-
Exactly.
He's like,
Yeah,
he's just like, we're miserable, but there's no easy way out of this problem.
right. And at that point, if you start doing the math of that, you
Right.
say, well, is the yes, sure, I'm not happy that no one ever wants to pay more. I want to pay more for
Yeah. Yeah.
my
Yeah.
subscription at home for my TV or
Yeah.
whatever.
Right.
I
Right.
don't
Right.
want to, but the cost and the time and the frustration associated with the change,
Yes.
there's a conversation there. There is some math there, but there's
Yep.
also just some, real world thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I think as we kind of look at the ecosystem, like, obviously, one of the biggest parts I think about this is just talking about Microsoft, where they are with Azure Virtual Desktop, how that all things, and fundamentally, historically speaking, what's that statement? Although past performance is no guarantee of future performance, it is, however, the best indicator available.
Sure.
Microsoft wins, right? Microsoft wins, like that, so they're gonna be a big player in this space. So when you look at Azure and Citrix's role with Azure and how that works and people going straight Azure. How does Citrix navigate the Microsoft part of this right now?
Yeah. I think it stems around the compute and the presentation.
Right.
Um, you work with customers
Yeah.
in some very highly regulated industries.
Yep.
I'm actually going to pose a question back.
Yep.
What is one of the biggest risks that you hear from your customers?
Yeah. Again, I think one of your strengths, and when I've talked to customers about this, is really the Citrix handles complexity much better than the standard Azure stuff, and desktops are more complex than people want to understand. When you talk to um, a CIO about their application offering, they'll talk about, well, these are our primaries and this is that, whatever. But as you drill down, what you find out is there are literally tens of thousands of applications that have to be specifically provisioned, controlled, managed. So I think your comments regarding performance and HDX are valid. I think your comments about that, but the real break point for me is like it's the 25 years of we're prepared to deal with federated provisioning,
Yeah.
in a way that's automated, structured, and manages. I don't think you can get out of the gate without that in a large, complex organization. So, when I'm
Yeah.
when I'm talking to customers, that's kind of what I'm starting with. I'm like, look, it would be great, but look, any idiot can throw a desktop up with Office.
Right.
That's not what you're doing. You've got
Right.
10,000 applications you're provisioning to different people for different reasons with different controls. You're doing configuration changes, structures. Like you need the right tool sets for
Yeah.
that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It does. There's another big one that's on my mind. And one of the things in my career, everything I've
Yeah.
done, I did consulting for a
Yeah.
while. End
Yeah.
user experience is extremely important to me.
Right.
It's been my sort of my North Star, just in
Yep.
general, how I approach problems. And one of the big things we hear about, and we think about all these cloud
Yep.
outages we've had. Look, there's not a single person in the world that should expect that no cloud service is ever going to go down.
Yep.
If you moved as a company or a business a service into one of the cloud services and expected you were never going to have an outage and that was going to solve all your outages problems, probably wasn't the best decision. Where we can help as well is our sort of multi-cloud strategy, right? And you're
Okay.
hearing this happening. You're hearing a
Yeah.
lot of regulations now starting to talk about you can't have all of your services in one cloud
Yeah.
provider.
Right.
And it's more in some cases now, I think the market, the industry, governments are still trying to figure this out.
Yep.
But when you start saying multiple clouds, does that mean multiple regions? Does that mean you know, um, pieces within a what does that mean? And I think that's where we can make a great experience for our customers.
Right.
Where if I want to have multi-cloud with some of these native solutions,
Hmm.
AVD and or Workspaces Core, for example, how do I tell my users when one goes down? If they have an SLA where they have to be up and running, what do they have to do? Go to different sites, click on here, if I can give an experience where I tell a user, if you click on that one, it doesn't work, click on this one, and it's coming from a separate cloud. I have a guiding principle. No end user in a business, unless they're tech people, right? But
Yeah.
in a general roles, business roles, should never have to know where their compute's coming from. They
Right.
should never have to know. There is no other product, no other offering that can truly give that with the best experience with the technologies we offer. I think that's a huge thing from a risk perspective. Again, this is if I'm thinking downstream, not just my IT customer, but the customer behind IT that I'm helping make. That's the big thing about being in a vendor now, right?
Hmm.
Don't generally speak to the business, I speak to IT. But whenever I'm speaking with them, and I think it comes from having been at that customer, I want to help them be look great to their business partners and
Right.
be able to equip their business partners with the best thing they can because that helps them. And I think that's a big part of how I approach it.
Now, and I think again we've had this conversation historically, but I think for the so much hinges on how you perceive yourself as an IT provider inside the company from like a service catalog perspective. Like you're not selling Azure desktops to your end user. You're selling a compute experience.
Right.
You've got that like that's what you're doing. And if you were building that business, if you were that was what you were selling was compute experiences, wouldn't you build it to be flexible, auto scaling, save all the money, have multi clouds? Like just put your entrepreneur hat on for a second
Absolutely.
and think about your product and how you're going to service your customers.
Yep.
And don't let them consume at the layer of I'm going to buy Azure desktops. Let them consume at the layer of the user experience,
Right.
right? So it's a service catalog flex, if you will. Does that
That's
make
exactly how I look at it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Cool,
And
cool.
that's a plug. I'm going to give a plug for a product that's going to be going GA in a couple of weeks, our Citrix Adrian product.
Hmm.
Right. And that is a tool that it's an AI solution that we
Yep.
put in Citrix Cloud coming to on-prem later this year. But that's about helping the admin experience, right?
Right,
How can we help make the admin's job easier? Because when their job is easier, they can support their business partners better, right? So that's how we're
right, right.
looking at all these different things.
Yeah, yeah.
It's very
Do you
important.
see do you see concern? I mean, like there's a lot of these sort of new startups that are basically built on Azure at kind of compete with you. I'll use Nerdio as an example. Like how do you see that market coming up and Citrix's reaction to it? Is that an area of concern? How do you see that compete happening?
No, I think it's good on some level, right? It's if you're the only game in town and there you've got no one else around you, it doesn't motivate you as much to be great,
Right,
right? I first of all, I always love hearing new ideas.
right,
I think that's great. I think there's a place for everyone in the market. And I think when you start having competition, you get better. And I've always been someone, and I had over 75 people on my team in my previous role, right? And I've led large teams. When you have a little bit of competition, sometimes you makes you work better.
perfect,
So we embrace it,
awesome.
and it helps the overall industry, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Let's be honest. Like I said, you and
yeah,
I, we're both
yeah,
EUC
yeah,
geeks.
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
I love hearing all that stuff. It's fun.
So I think one of the challenges in the space, and this is like, kind of gets down to like brass tacks here of like people are on VMware, they want to get off VMware, they're trying to figure out how to end it. I think people are using Citrix or looking at that stuff. I mean, I think one of the things that we've kind of lost, in my opinion, in the last couple of years is this perspective on like why Citrix is a good partner in the future. Like why, like not just I have it today and I want to get off in the next 3 years. Like paint me a picture of like where Citrix is 3, 5 years from now. Why they're the right long-term partner. Why this is the right. I mean, I know this is a very big question, but to me, this is one of the things the industry needs to hear. That
Yeah,
Citrix isn't going anyplace. They're making investment. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like I want to bring back this concept that Citrix is strategic. How does
yeah.
that happen? Give me a story there.
Yeah, I think and this goes back to kind of what I said. We re I don't want to say revamping, it's refining our
Mhm.
story. One of the things, and I had many meetings with customers last year, and our goal and our strategy, the number one secure application access provider.
Right.
And when you see these strategic moves and partnerships we've made with, Google, for example,
Mhm.
with Chrome Enterprise Premium, you think
Yep.
of some of our M&As with Uber Agent, Device Trust,
Yeah.
and Unicon, right? I think that's proof in the pudding of
Right.
our commitment to, what we're doing strategically. I think it's also we are making a real big push with our customers on that point of being strategic. And you're not strategic when you walk into CIOs and CTOs and SVPs of infrastructure and talk about protocols and HDX, and that's expected. If you're going to walk into a customer and sell enterprise software, they expect that. Do they
Right.
expect
Right.
no bugs? No, but that's what they expect. Where we are approaching, and this is why when you hear, right, we don't charge for consulting anymore, right? We used,
Right.
you used to be sal based and you bought
Yeah.
hours and things like that. That's part of it because that's our commitment to that strategy. We want
Right.
to be a strategic partner. Um, we want to offer you tools and solutions. We walk in with the toolbox. We help you decipher what tools you need to work with your end users. And that's a very important part of our strategy going forward. I think the other thing when you say 3 to 5 years that we're also doing a lot of thinking about is the non-human worker. I mean,
Right.
how many days are you going now when you don't hear AI in something,
Right.
right?
Not,
It's
not very many.
not
Yes.
many, right?
Yeah.
That is a big thing. It's a big conversation in every C-suite right now. It's a big conversation at the infrastructure level because the infrastructure required for it.
Hmm.
Um, I think that's another big part. We have historically delivered solutions for end users to do their roles. What
Right.
does that look like when you start having that role maybe not being human? That's what we're thinking about, and that's what we're looking towards. And you've seen Brian Madden's blogs
Yep.
on our site, on the Citrix blog site, right? That's
Hmm.
that's one of the big things we're also looking at 3 to 5 years from now.
No, that is very cool, and you're absolutely right. That's the game changer. That we're going to see a lot of that stuff. Well, cool. Well, I finished all my questions. What else? What else didn't I ask you? What else did you want to? Would you like to bring up for us?
Yeah, I think the key one is one of the things we hear a lot, and I know it is somewhat tactical, but
Hmm.
we have this LAS transformation going on,
Yep.
and you talk about the market and different vendors and things.
Hmm.
Um, Understanding it's a frustration or a pain point for our customers.
Yep.
Um, it is very important, right?
Yep.
And one of the reasons why we're doing it, number one, it's every business has their IP, their intellectual property.
Yep.
It's part of that. It's also to help us build better products, right? And
Yep.
we information is power, and information utilized the right way, and that's what we're trying to do. And that's a lot of what my new role is, right? If you heard my role,
Yep.
platform services,
Yeah.
I'm not a product pillar, right? So
Right.
my peer owns, the browser. Peer owns VDI.
Hmm.
My role on my team is about the glue, right?
Right.
We put that all together and so that we can make this toolbox great. And that's what some of these strategies are, and you hear these things. So, um, you know, I know it's a pain point for our customers because no one likes to have to do licensing changes and things like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But it really is to help us look to the future and to help better serve our customers in the long run. So
That sounds awesome.
that's a big point.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. Well, Bill, I want to thank you for this. It's great. It's always great talking to you, and
Yeah, you
it's
too.
interesting that it's the same conversation we would have at a bar somewhere. We just happen to be recording it. So if anybody
Yeah,
wants to stop by when Bill and I are at a bar somewhere, this will be the same
yeah,
thing you'll see there.
yeah. I got to get down there. Come visit. We should.
Yeah, yeah. We should
I
hang
think the
out.
last time we saw in person was at a Synergy, isn't it?
That's
I think it
awesome.
might
That's
have
a long time
been.
ago. Yeah, yeah.
So,
But awesome.
unfortunately, I
Cool.
know we don't have synergies, but be great to catch up sometime in person.
That'd be great. All right. Well, Bill, thanks so much. Thanks
Thank
everybody
you.
for logging in. Yeah, we're around if you have any questions. Reach out to your reps, and we'll be glad to help you. Get you in touch with Bill. Thanks, Bill.
Thanks so much, Ken. Take
Bye.
care. Bye bye.